The grand ballroom of the Sterling Hotel in Manhattan glittered under crystal chandeliers, but Mia Chen felt only dread as she stood at the entrance in a borrowed wedding dress. Her hands trembled around a bouquet of white roses thrust at her minutes before. 3 days ago, she had been working double shifts at a Brooklyn diner, barely making rent. Now she was marrying a stranger because her father's gambling debts had destroyed their family in the cruelest way possible. Ryan Kang stood at the altar like a marble statue, his expression cold and unreadable as January snow. At 32, he controlled a billion-dollar empire and treated people like disposable chess pieces. Mia had seen his face in magazines, always accompanied by headlines about hostile takeovers and crushed competitors. The man never smiled in photographs. He certainly wasn't smiling now as he watched her forced march down the aisle toward a life she never wanted. Each step felt like betrayal of every dream Mia had cherished. The crowd wasn't filled with wedding guests but business associates and society reporters witnessing Ryan Kang's latest acquisition. Her father sat in the third row, refusing to meet her eyes, his face gray with shame. Her younger sister Lily sobbed quietly beside him, the only person who seemed to care that Mia's life was being sold. The wedding march sounded like a funeral dirge. When Mia reached the altar, Ryan's dark eyes swept over her face with startling intensity. For a moment, something flickered in his gaze, something like recognition, but it vanished instantly. He didn't offer his hand. He simply waited, unmoved as a judge pronouncing sentence. The minister began the ceremony, words washing over Mia like drowning waves. Then something unexpected happened. Ryan's jaw tightened as he turned to face her fully. "Before we continue," he said, his voice cutting through whispers, "there's something you need to know." Mia's heart hammered. The ballroom fell silent. 15 years ago, a girl saved my life. I never forgot her face. Ryan pulled out a faded friendship bracelet, red and blue thread worn with time. "You gave this to me at Camp Riverside," he said, voice dropping with unnamed emotion. "You pulled me from the lake when I went under. The only person who came back for me." Memories flooded Mia, the summer camp her mother sacrificed for, the bullied boy, the desperate midnight swim. The boy she saved had become the man holding her fate, and she didn't know if that changed everything or nothing at all. The wedding reception passed in a blur of forced smiles and hollow congratulations. Mia sat beside Ryan at the head table, acutely aware of the mere inches separating them yet feeling an ocean of distance between their worlds. He hadn't spoken to her since the ceremony ended, his attention focused on business associates who approached with thinly veiled curiosity about his sudden marriage. The friendship bracelet had disappeared back into his pocket, and with it, any warmth that had briefly flickered in his eyes. Mia wondered if she had imagined the entire moment at the altar. When the last guest finally departed, Ryan stood abruptly. "We're leaving," he said, his tone clipped and businesslike. A black car waited outside, and Mia found herself being driven through Manhattan's glittering streets toward a penthouse in Tribeca that would now be her prison. The silence in the car was suffocating. Mia wanted to ask about Camp Riverside, about why he had kept the bracelet all these years, about what any of this meant. But Ryan's rigid posture and the hard set of his jaw warned her to stay quiet. The penthouse was all glass and steel, beautiful and cold like its owner. Ryan gestured toward a hallway. "Your room is the second door on the left. My assistant will bring your things tomorrow." "Your room. Not our room." Despite everything, Mia felt a strange mixture of relief and disappointment. "This marriage is a business arrangement," Ryan continued, his voice devoid of emotion. "You'll attend events when required and maintain appearances. Beyond that, stay out of my way." His words stung more than they should have. "Is that why you told everyone about the lake?" Mia asked, finding her voice. "To make this arrangement seem less cold?" Ryan's expression hardened, a muscle ticking in his jaw. For a moment, she thought he might actually answer honestly. Instead, he turned away. "That was a mistake. A moment of weakness I won't repeat." But as he walked toward his own room, Mia caught something in his reflection on the dark windows. His hand was pressed against his jacket pocket, right where he had placed the bracelet. His shoulders were tense, and his jaw was clenched as if fighting some internal battle. Whatever Ryan Kang claimed about weakness and mistakes, he was lying. The boy from the lake was still somewhere inside the cold CEO. Mia retreated to her assigned room, her mind racing with questions that had no answers. She pulled out her phone and found a text from Lily. "Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay." Before Mia could respond, she heard something from the hallway, Ryan's voice, low and strained, speaking to someone on the phone. "No, Mother, you can't meet her yet. This isn't what you think." A pause. "Because she doesn't remember everything about that summer, and it needs to stay that way." Mia woke to find Ryan already gone, the penthouse eerily silent except for the hum of the city below. A note on the kitchen counter simply read, "Driver will take you wherever you need to go. Card attached for expenses. R." The black credit card beneath it felt like another chain binding her to this gilded cage. She wanted to throw it away, but reality crashed down. She still needed to help her father pay off the remaining debt, still needed to support Lily's college tuition. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. 3 days passed in strange isolation. Ryan came home late each night, barely acknowledging her presence before disappearing into his office. Mia spent her time exploring the penthouse, feeling like a ghost haunting someone else's life. But she couldn't stop thinking about his phone conversation, about what he meant by her not remembering everything. What had happened that summer beyond the lake incident? The gaps in her memory felt suddenly significant, like missing pieces of a puzzle she didn't know she was solving. On the fourth morning, Mia decided to visit Lily at Columbia University. Her sister's face lit up when she arrived at the campus coffee shop, but the light quickly dimmed with concern. "You look exhausted," Lily said, gripping Mia's hands across the table. "Is he treating you badly?" "Because I don't care about the debt or Dad's mistakes, you don't have to stay." Mia wanted to tell her everything, but how could she explain that Ryan wasn't cruel, just absent? That he had saved a bracelet for 15 years but now acted like she was invisible? Their conversation was interrupted when someone called Lily's name. A tall, warm-eyed man approached their table, his smile genuine and kind. "Lily, I didn't know you'd be here today," he said, then his gaze shifted to Mia with polite curiosity. "Daniel Kim," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "I'm Lily's sociology professor." Something about his easy manner made Mia relax for the first time in days. When he learned she was Lily's sister, his interest seemed to deepen beyond mere politeness. Daniel joined them, and conversation flowed naturally. He was everything Ryan wasn't: open, attentive, interested in her thoughts rather than treating her like a burden. When Mia mentioned she had worked at a diner, Daniel didn't look down on her. Instead, he shared stories about working his way through graduate school. "Hard work builds character," he said, his eyes holding hers. "Anyone who judges you for it isn't worth your time." As they said goodbye, Daniel handed Mia his card. "If you ever need someone to talk to, or if Lily needs anything at school, please reach out." His fingers brushed hers briefly, and the warmth of simple human kindness nearly brought tears to her eyes. But as she turned to leave, Mia's heart stopped. Across the street, partially hidden behind a black car, stood Ryan. He was watching them, and even from this distance, she could see the rigid tension in his shoulders and something dark burning in his eyes. Ryan didn't come home that night. Mia sat in the dark penthouse, Daniel's card on the coffee table before her, replaying the moment she had seen Ryan across the street. He had been watching her, and the look on his face had been anything but indifferent. By the time she had crossed the street to confront him, he was gone, leaving only the fading exhaust of his car and a dozen unanswered questions burning in her chest. The next morning, Ryan's assistant delivered a message. Mia was required to attend a charity gala that evening as his wife. The dress provided was stunning midnight blue silk that probably cost more than 6 months of her old salary. As Mia prepared that evening, she caught her reflection and barely recognized herself. She looked like she belonged in Ryan's world, but the woman in the mirror felt like a stranger wearing someone else's life. Ryan arrived exactly at 7, devastating in a black tuxedo. His eyes swept over her, lingering for a moment longer than necessary before his expression shuddered. "You look acceptable," he said coldly, but Mia had caught the flash of something else in his gaze, something heated that made her pulse quicken despite her frustration with him. The car ride to the Plaza Hotel was tense, the air thick with unspoken words. Finally, Mia broke the silence. Were you following me yesterday? Ryan's jaw clenched. I was ensuring you weren't doing anything to embarrass me publicly. The lie was obvious, and they both knew it. So talking to my sister's professor is embarrassing? Mia challenged. Or is it that you can't stand seeing me actually enjoy a conversation with someone? Ryan's hands tightened on his knees, his knuckles white. Be careful, Mia. You don't know what you're talking about. The gala was overwhelming, a sea of designer gowns, champagne towers, and Manhattan's elite scrutinizing Ryan Kang's mysterious new wife. Ryan kept his hand on the small of her back, a possessive gesture that felt more like a brand than comfort. When Daniel Kim appeared across the ballroom, Mia's surprise must have shown on her face. Ryan followed her gaze, and his grip on her waist tightened almost painfully. Daniel's family funds half the charities in New York, Ryan said, his voice low and dangerous. Stay away from him. Before Mia could respond, Daniel approached with that same warm smile. Mrs. Cohn, what a pleasant surprise. He nodded politely to Ryan, whose expression could have frozen hell itself. Ryan, I didn't know you were interested in children's literacy programs. The tension between the two men was palpable, like watching two wolves circle each other. And then Daniel did something unexpected, he extended his hand to Mia. Would you honor me with a dance? Ryan's hand shot out and gripped Mia's wrist before she could accept Daniel's invitation. My wife doesn't dance with other men, he said, his voice cutting like ice despite the fire burning in his eyes. The possessiveness in his tone sent shockwaves through Mia. This was the first time he had claimed her as anything more than a business arrangement. Daniel raised an eyebrow, his expression remaining pleasant but his eyes showing he understood the challenge. Of course. Forgive me for overstepping. As Daniel walked away, Mia yanked her wrist free from Ryan's grip. What is wrong with you? She hissed, keeping her voice low to avoid a scene. You've ignored me for days, treated me like I don't exist, and now you're acting like a jealous husband? Ryan's eyes darkened, and before she could process what was happening, he pulled her onto the dance floor himself. His hand settled on her waist, drawing her closer than necessary, and Mia's breath caught at the sudden intimacy. You want to know what's wrong with me? Ryan's voice was rough against her ear as they moved to the music. Watching you smile at him the way you used to smile at me 15 years ago. Seeing you light up for someone else when you look at me like I'm your jailer. His confession hung between them, raw and unexpected. Mia's heart raced as she processed his words. You're the one who said this was just business. That telling everyone about the lake was a mistake. Ryan's grip tightened, and she felt him trembling slightly. Because it's easier than admitting the truth. Easier than telling you I've searched for the girl from the lake for 15 years. That when your father came to me with his debt, and I saw your name on the paperwork, I couldn't believe fate had brought you back. Mia pulled back to look at his face, and what she saw there stole her breath, raw vulnerability, longing, and something that looked terrifyingly like love. Then why? Mia whispered. Why treat me like this? Why push me away? Ryan's thumb brushed across her waist, a gesture so tender it contradicted everything about his cold demeanor. Because you deserve better than being bought like a transaction. Because I forced you into this marriage, and one day you'll hate me for it. Because I'm terrified that if I let myself get close to you, I won't survive when you finally leave. The music ended, but neither of them moved. The moment shattered when Ryan's mother appeared beside them, elegant and intimidating in diamonds and silk. Ryan, darling, you must introduce me to your bride, she said, but her eyes held a warning that made Mia's stomach drop. Ryan's entire body tensed. Mother, this isn't the time. Mrs. Kang's smile was sharp as glass. Oh, but it is. Especially since I've just learned something very interesting about your wife's family. Something I think we all need to discuss. Privately. Mrs. Khan led them to a private room off the ballroom, her silk gown rustling like a serpent's warning. Ryan's hand found Mia's, squeezing once, whether in reassurance or apology, she couldn't tell. The moment the door closed, his mother's pleasant facade crumbled. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate the girl who trapped my son into marriage? Her words were venom. Your father didn't just have gambling debts, dear. He stole from the Kang family business 15 years ago. Mia's world tilted violently. That's impossible. My father worked at a grocery store, but even as she spoke, fragments of memory surfaced, her father coming home late during that summer, her mother's worried whispers, the way they had moved suddenly to a different neighborhood right after camp ended. Mrs. Kang's smile was triumphant. He was our accountant. He embezzled $2 million, and my husband chose not to press charges because your mother begged him. She promised to pay it back. My mother died 8 years ago, Mia whispered, the pieces falling into devastating place. The medical bills that had crushed them. Her mother working herself to exhaustion. The guilt that had slowly killed her father's spirit. Exactly, Mrs. Kang continued coldly. The debt transferred to your father, and when he couldn't pay, he gambled desperately trying to win enough money. Instead, he dug himself deeper. And now my son has married the daughter of a thief. Ryan's voice cut through like steel. Enough, mother. He stepped between them, his body a shield protecting Mia. You've known about this the entire time. You're the one who told me about Mia's father's death 3 months ago. You pushed me toward this arrangement. Mrs. Kang's eyes glittered dangerously. Because I wanted to see if you'd choose her over family duty. And you have. You've proven yourself weak. The room spun as Mia processed everything. Ryan had known about her father's original crime. He had known their families were connected by betrayal and debt long before the wedding. You knew, Mia breathed, looking at Ryan with mounting horror. All of it. The debt wasn't random. You sought us out. Ryan reached for her, but she stepped back. Mia, please let me explain, but she couldn't hear past the roaring in her ears. Was any of it real? Mia's voice broke. The bracelet? The lake? Or was that just another manipulation? Ryan's face contorted with pain. Everything about that summer was real. You saved my life, and he stopped, his mother's presence clearly preventing him from finishing. Mrs. Kang moved toward the door with cold satisfaction. The board meeting is Monday, Ryan. You'll need to choose your inheritance and position as CEO, or this girl whose family has brought nothing but shame to ours. As she left, Mia felt the walls closing in, realizing she had been a pawn in a game she never knew she was playing. Mia ran. She didn't care that she was wearing an expensive gown or that her heels weren't made for running through Manhattan streets. She just needed to escape the suffocating truth that her entire marriage was built on lies and family betrayal. Ryan called after her, his voice desperate, but she couldn't face him. Not now. Not when every word he had ever spoken felt tainted by deception. She finally stopped in Central Park, gasping for breath, tears streaming down her face as reality crashed over her in waves. Ryan found her on a bench near the fountain, his tuxedo jacket gone and his shirt disheveled from running. He approached slowly, like she was a wounded animal that might bolt again. Mia, please. Let me explain everything. She laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. Explain what? That you've been planning this for months? That you used my father's mistakes to trap me? That every kind word was just part of your revenge? It wasn't revenge, Ryan said fiercely, dropping to his knees before her. The powerful CEO kneeling on cold concrete looked nothing like the man who commanded boardrooms. When my mother told me about your father's debt, yes, I saw an opportunity. But not for revenge, for a second chance. To find you again. To keep you safe from the collectors who were circling your family. His hands trembled as he reached for hers. I've made terrible choices, I know. But my feelings for you were never part of the manipulation. Mia wanted to believe him, but hurt and betrayal clouded everything. Your mother said you have to choose on Monday. Your company or me. We both know what you'll choose. Ryan's grip tightened desperately. You're wrong. I choose you. I've been choosing you since the moment I saw your name on that debt paperwork. Everything I've done, every cold word, every time I pushed you away, it was because I was terrified of this exact moment. Of you looking at me like I'm a monster. Then tell me the whole truth, Mia demanded, her voice breaking.
Tell me what really happened that summer. What you think I don't remember?
Ryan's face went pale, and she knew she had struck something vital. He stood slowly, turning away from her.
That summer, you didn't just save me from drowning.
You saved me from my father. His voice was raw with pain. He was the one who pushed me into the lake.
It wasn't an accident.
The confession hung in the cold night air like a grenade.
Mia's memory shifted, reformed.
She remembered now the angry man on the dock, the violent shove, the way young Ryan had looked so terrified even before hitting the water. Your father tried to kill you, she whispered. Ryan nodded, his shoulders shaking.
He was drunk and angry that I'd embarrassed him at some business function.
After you saved me, your mother found us. She called the police, testified as a witness.
My father went to prison for attempted murder.
He turned back to face her, tears streaming down his face. Your family destroyed mine to save me.
And then your father, desperate and afraid of retaliation, stole money trying to run. Don't you see? We've been bound together by tragedy from the beginning. Mia sat frozen as 15 years of buried memories flooded back.
Her mother's panicked phone calls that summer. The police interviews.
Moving suddenly in the middle of the night.
Her father's haunted expression that never quite faded. Everything made terrible, tragic sense now. My father stole the money because he was afraid your family would retaliate, she whispered.
He was trying to protect us.
Ryan nodded, wiping his tears roughly. And my mother has used that theft to maintain control over both our families ever since. The weight of their intertwined past settled between them like a living thing. Mia understood now why Ryan had kept the bracelet, why he had looked at her with such complex emotion at the altar. They weren't just connected by a childhood rescue, they were bound by trauma, sacrifice, and the sins of their parents.
What happens Monday? She asked quietly. Ryan's expression hardened with resolve. I'm announcing my resignation as CEO. I'm choosing you, Mia. I'm choosing us. You can't do that, Mia said, standing abruptly. Your company is your life.
Everything you've built, Ryan grabbed her shoulders gently.
Everything I've built means nothing if I lose you in the process.
I've spent 15 years becoming exactly what my mother wanted, cold, ruthless, powerful.
But that boy you saved from the lake? He's still inside me, and he's been drowning again ever since I pushed you away.
His thumb brushed away a tear on her cheek.
Let me choose differently this time. Let me choose love. The word hung between them, finally spoken aloud. Love. Not obligation, not debt, not arrangement.
Before Mia could respond, her phone buzzed insistently.
Lily's name flashed on the screen with a message that made Mia's blood run cold. Dad's in the hospital. Heart attack. Come now. Ryan didn't hesitate.
He grabbed her hand and they ran together toward the street, flagging down a taxi. As they raced toward the hospital, Ryan held her trembling hand tightly, and Mia realized that somewhere between the forced wedding and tonight's revelations, he had become her anchor.
At the hospital, they found Lily crying in the waiting room.
He collapsed after some men came to the apartment, she sobbed.
They said the debt wasn't cleared, that there was interest Ryan didn't pay. They wanted more money. Ryan's face went white, then red with rage.
My mother, he said through gritted teeth.
She's trying to force my hand before Monday.
He pulled out his phone and made a call, his voice deadly calm.
Daniel? I need a favor. Within an hour, Daniel Kim arrived at the hospital with his family's lawyer.
Whatever you need, Ryan, he said, and despite the rivalry between them, there was genuine concern in his eyes when he looked at Mia's devastated face. Ryan laid out his plan, transfer everything, his shares, his inheritance, all of it, to Mia before the Monday meeting.
If I have nothing, my mother has no leverage. Daniel's lawyer looked shocked. Mr. Kang, that's not just your company. That's your entire life. Ryan looked at Mia, and his expression was so tender it hurt.
No, he said softly.
She is. The paperwork was completed by dawn. Ryan signed away billions without hesitation, his eyes never leaving Mia's face as Daniel's lawyer witnessed each signature.
When it was done, everything Ryan Kang had built belonged to Mia Chen, a woman who had entered his life as a debt payment and had become his entire world.
"You're insane," Mia whispered as the lawyer left. "I don't want your money. I never wanted any of this." Ryan cupped her face gently. "I know. That's exactly why you should have it."
Her father stabilized by morning, and the doctors said he would recover. But as Mia sat by his hospital bed, watching him sleep, she understood the crushing weight of sacrifice her parents had carried for 15 years. They had destroyed their lives protecting her and Lily from the Kang family's wrath. Now Ryan was doing the same, destroying everything he had built to protect her. The cycle of sacrifice felt endless, each generation paying for the sins and love of the previous one. Monday arrived like an executioner's blade. Ryan walked into the Kang Industries board meeting with Mia at his side, facing his mother's ice-cold fury. The boardroom fell silent as Mrs. Kang stood, her expression murderous.
"You've made your choice, then.
You're willing to throw away your legacy for her."
Ryan's voice was steady. "I'm willing to throw away your legacy.
The one built on control and manipulation.
I'm keeping what actually matters." Mrs. Kang's laugh was bitter. "You think you've won? You think giving her your shares changes anything?"
The board will never accept her. They'll vote her out within a week, and you'll have nothing.
But Daniel Kim stood from his seat at the table. Mia hadn't known he was a board member.
"Actually, Mrs. Kang, you're wrong.
I'm voting to support Mrs. Kang as acting CEO. She has proven integrity that this company desperately needs."
One by one, other board members stood in support. Not all of them. Mrs. Kang still had her loyalists, but enough. Enough to shift the balance of power. Mrs. Kang's face went white with rage as she realized her control was crumbling.
"This isn't over," she hissed at Ryan. "You'll regret choosing her over family."
Ryan stepped closer to his mother, and his voice was filled with quiet finality.
"She is my family now."
"You stopped being family the moment you tried to use her father's debt to control my life."
As they left the building, Mia's phone rang. The hospital. Her father had woken up and was asking for her.
But there was something else. The nurse's voice was urgent. "Your father is insisting he needs to tell you something about the night of the lake.
He says it's important. He says Ryan's father didn't act alone that night."
Mia's hand tightened on Ryan's as they rushed back to the hospital, both of them sensing that the final secret, the one that would either destroy them or set them free, was about to be revealed. Mia's father sat propped against hospital pillows, looking older and frilier than she had ever seen him. But his eyes were clear with purpose as Ryan and Mia entered. "I need to tell you both the truth," he said, his voice weak but determined. "About that night at the lake, and why I really took the money." Ryan tensed beside Mia, but he nodded for her father to continue. What came next shattered everything they thought they knew.
"Ryan's father didn't push him into the lake alone," Mr. Chen began. "Mrs. Kang was there too.
She wanted her husband to do it. She had been planning it for weeks. Your father was violent and cruel, Ryan, but she was the mastermind. She wanted you gone so her nephew could inherit the company instead." Ryan staggered backward, Mia catching him. "That's impossible. My mother saved me after." But Mr. Chen shook his head sadly. "She saved you because Mia and her mother witnessed everything. We had proof."
"The money I took?"
"It was blackmail payment. She offered to keep us silent and destroy the evidence." The hospital room spun around them. Mrs. Kang hadn't been the victim of their family's crimes, she had been the architect of all their suffering. "My mother tried to murder me," Ryan whispered, the words hollow with shock. Mia's father continued, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I was weak. I took the money to protect my family, and I've lived with the guilt every day since. Your mother used that guilt to control me, and when I couldn't pay anymore, she engineered this entire situation to trap you both. Mia pulled out her phone with shaking hands.
We need to record this.
Your testimony, but her father was already ahead of her, pulling out a small recording device from under his pillow.
I've already given my statement to the police. They're at your mother's house now with a warrant. This ends today.
Ryan collapsed into a chair, his entire world reorganizing itself around this new, terrible truth. Mia knelt before him, taking his hands.
We're free now. Both of us. 2 months later, Mia stood in the penthouse that finally felt like home, watching the sunset paint Manhattan in gold.
Mrs. Kang was awaiting trial.
The company was thriving under Mia's leadership with Ryan as her partner in business and in life.
The doorbell rang, and Lily bounced in with Daniel, their hands intertwined. Their father had moved into a small apartment nearby, finally at peace after confessing his sins.
The family that had been broken by secrets was healing through truth. Ryan came up behind Mia, wrapping his arms around her waist. Regrets, he whispered against her ear.
She turned in his embrace, looking up at the man who had sacrificed everything for love. Only that we wasted 15 years apart. He smiled, a real, genuine smile she was still getting used to seeing, and pulled out the faded friendship bracelet.
Then let's not waste another moment.
As he tied it around her wrist where it belonged, Mia kissed him with all the love that had survived tragedy, secrets, and time. They had been bound by debt and deception, but they were choosing to stay bound by something far stronger, a love that had saved them both, 15 years ago and every day since.